What's going on, all you brainiacs out there, and welcome back to yet another Football Draft Friday, number 4. We have made it a full month in. I can't believe it. Thank you guys for sticking with me. Thank you guys for enjoying the video, and thanks for all the support that you've given us here at the Fantasy Football Laboratory on Twitter, with our podcast, here on YouTube, on Patreon. We really appreciate it. You know, we very much enjoyed doing this and look forward to continue producing all this content. Getting into the video, we are looking at Kyle Pitts today, the tight end out of Florida, the guy who most people have as their number 1 tight end, and I can't blame them. Dude is a stud receiving tight end. So with all that said, let's get it rolling.
Welcome to The Lab.
Before the intro, I mentioned that Kyle Pitts is the number 1 tight end on most people's draft boards, and that's because he's not actually the number 1 tight end on my draft board. And that's kind of a hot take because Kyle Pitts is far and away the best receiving tight end, and I admit that. He very much is. I mean, it looks like Darren Waller out there. He's a 6'6", 200 whatever pound wide receiver. He really is. But tight ends have to do more than just catch the ball. They have to also block, and that's why Kyle Pitts is actually number 2 on my list. So let's get into the film. I'll show you exactly what makes Kyle Pitts such a special receiving tight end, and then I'll also show you a little bit of where I think he has some shortcomings.
All right, getting into the film of Kyle Pitts now, tight end from Florida who most people have as their number 1 tight end in this draft class because, you know, as a receiver, he definitely is the best tight end. Now I'm showing you clips from his game against Ole Miss and then his game against Texas A&M and his game against South Carolina. So Kyle Pitts was very, very good for the Gators this season. He was a big reason why Kyle Trask had as good of a season as he did. And the thing that really sets him apart is just the fact that he is a 6'6" wide receiver. And so in this first clip, I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that. You're going to see him there at the top of your screen. Pitts just gets wide open. I mean, he absolutely blows past the defender. Here you'll see him take off, and I mean, number 22, number 14, they don't even know what hit them. Trask, you know, a little bit underthrown, but it doesn't matter. Pitts gets open, and that's really what sets him apart in the sense of a tight end. I'm not a huge fan of player comparisons, but Kyle Pitts looks a lot like Darren Waller. Both are 6'6", both weigh 200 some pounds, and both are just huge wide receivers, and having that advantage at a position. Defensive backs are not going to be able to cover a guy that big being physical, right? What they're going to rely on is their speed. But if you've got a guy who's that big and just as fast as them, then, you know, they're absolutely toast. That's a huge, huge, huge advantage to have. And you're really going to see how big that advantage will be in these next several catches that I show. Just look at this catch. On top of having that speed, Kyle Pitts has the ability to make some ridiculous catches. I mean, look at this. Look at how cleanly he gets his hands under that. I mean, that is very, very clearly a catch and a really difficult one to make. The amount of athleticism that takes is something that someone at 6'6" should not have. But what's so great about Pitts, one more angle. I mean, that's insane. What's so great about Pitts is the dude is 6'6", but has all the athleticism of a wide receiver to make those insane catches, to get open downfield, to stretch the field. And then, of course, another great catch here, and that's just understanding exactly where to go to catch the ball. Here you'll see, getting a little handsy, that's really where being that big and having that strength really comes in handy. He's working against a defensive back who is a good amount smaller than him. And look at that catch. He just comes back to the ball, strong hands, gets in the end zone. That's textbook right there. And again, athleticism that tight ends do not typically have. Here you're going to see more tight end-like catches with just going over the guy and mossing him. So on top of having that athleticism to go down, catch the balls like receivers, dude can still go up. I mean, look at the height difference between him and number 38. It's ridiculous. And he can just go up, he can get the ball, his quarterback can throw the ball up to him, and he can catch it over the defensive back. His quarterback can throw the ball down to him, and he can dive down and catch it. But the versatility you have in the pass game with Kyle Pitts will be such an unfair advantage because he's so good. Here you'll see one more time just how good his hands are and the speed. I mean, look at this. That ball is thrown way behind him. That is not an easy catch to make, period. But much less to make it in stride. He doesn't lose a beat. He shakes this defender off and just ends up going down at the first down. So having that combination of size, strength, and speed, and you combine all of that with how good his hands are, make him a ridiculous receiver. Now, here's the issue with Kyle Pitts. There are two. First off, he wasn't used much as a blocker in college because he was such a good receiver. And even the clips of him blocking that I did see, he did struggle a bit. So as a blocker, I'm not exactly sure how good he'll be in the NFL, But there are a lot of good receiving tight ends in today's game who aren't very good blockers. Case in point, Darren Waller. Case in point, Travis Kelce. Very good receiving tight ends, not really used in the blocking role. But here is the bigger issue in my mind. He's a receiving tight end, yet he has, here's one more great catch. But, he's a receiving tight end, but has horrible body control. I mean, look at this. That ball, that's not an easy catch, not by any stretch of the imagination. But what he needs to do is he needs to keep those feet down. He needs to keep them in bounds. Doesn't even come close. I mean, he steps so far out of bounds. It's not even close. And here you'll see another example right here versus South Carolina. And this is really the bad one. The other one, okay, that's tough to do. That only a special few receivers can make. But Kyle Pitts is going to be drafted as one of those special few receivers, so he needs to be able to do it. And here, this one's just really bad. Look where he catches this ball. Look where his foot is. His foot is way in bounds. His foot is probably at least a yard in bounds. All he has to do, honestly, is just fall to that knee, get it down. He just has to get that foot down. In college, it's just 1 foot. Right? In the pros, it's 2. He can't even get the 1 foot down. You see him step on that line. Look at how much he extended. That's a big problem and definitely something that needs to be addressed, and part of the reason why he actually isn't my number 1 tight end. And I'll get into a video about Pat Freiermuth, who is my number 1 tight end. But really the big issues that I have with Kyle Pitts are his inability to block and his poor body control. He is the most athletic tight end. He is the best receiving tight end in this draft class for sure. He's got great hands. He's super fast. He's 6'6", 200 whatever pounds. Having Kyle Pitts will be a ridiculous advantage in the NFL, and whatever team gets lucky enough to draft him is looking like having a potential Darren Waller type player on their team, which is just such an unfair advantage to have. So Kyle Pitts, definitely, though he has some flaws, is a very, very good prospect.
Before the film, I mentioned something about Kyle Pitts not being a great blocking tight end. And here's the thing. You didn't see a clip of him blocking there because in the film that I watched, I don't think I ever saw Kyle Pitts actually block. Maybe I saw him line up as a blocker, but maybe the play ran the other direction or what have you. I didn't really see instances of him being necessarily a bad blocker, but I didn't see instances of him being a good blocker, and that concerns me because he wasn't really used in that role in college, and why would he be? Kyle Pitts is such a good receiving tight end. Get another tight end to block, right? Kyle Pitts, when he's out there, you want to use him as a wide receiver. I absolutely understand that, but from a perspective of a complete tight end, he is obviously not a complete tight end. I mean, it's the difference between Travis Kelce and George Kittle. Maybe Travis Kelce is a slightly better receiving tight end than George Kittle, but at the end of the day, George Kittle is the better tight end because he is a complete tight end. He is a monster in the block game, and that's such an advantage to have. Talking about team fits, Kyle Pitts will almost certainly not fall out of the first round. I mean, when you have that type of athleticism for a 6'6" guy, I mean, that's a huge mismatch. And so he will probably go, honestly, he'll probably go in the top 10, if I'm going to be honest. I think a great spot and a spot that he's oftentimes, mock drafted to is the Carolina Panthers at pick 8. Now, that's very early to take a tight end. I mean, you have a recent example. 2 years ago, the Detroit Lions took TJ Hawkinson at that same spot, but that's very early to take a tight end. Top 10, Kyle Pitts, though, with his ability as a receiver, is worth it. The Panthers tight end, you probably don't even know who it is. Their top receiving tight end is Ian Thomas. He did almost nothing this season. Now, they do have a very good receiving core, and so that may keep them from taking a tight end, but they could absolutely use a tight end, and the mismatch Kyle Pitts brings in that game is huge. He could absolutely have a good season there with the Panthers. I would be a little bit concerned just because there's Curtis Samuel, there's Robbie Anderson, there's DJ Moore. All those guys are there right now and might be there next season as well. So that would really concern me there with how effective can Kyle Pitts be. But I could also see a scenario in which Kyle Pitts has a very good season with the Panthers. What if the Panthers take a quarterback if they don't think that Teddy Bridgewater is the answer? All right, where could Kyle Pitts go after that? There are still a lot of good places in the first round for him. He could go to Dallas. Maybe they don't think Blake Jarwin is the answer. Obviously, he got off to a good start with Dak, but tore his ACL very early in the season. Maybe they want to go get Kyle Pitts and get Dak, who I assume they'll re-sign, that top receiving tight end. Maybe they'll do that. I would be a little bit surprised if they did and don't know how much of an impact he would make in his first year with Blake Jarwin there, when you also have Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, a lot of good receivers. So if he went there, I would be very concerned for his fantasy value. I don't think it'd be very high next season. Where could he go past that? I think a very clear spot is number 15 to the New England Patriots. The Patriots have not had a good tight end since Rob Gronkowski. Kyle Pitts would immediately make that spot much better. Obviously, there are question marks with the quarterback. If Cam Newton's back, I don't know how much I trust Kyle Pitts just because Cam Newton was not able to effectively throw the ball. I do not expect Newton to be back, though, and so we'll see. Will it be Jarrett Stidham? Don't know if I trust it then. Are they going to, draft a guy? Maybe they'll draft a guy in the second round or something. Maybe they'll go out and get a free agent. Whatever the case, if Kyle Pitts ends up there, he will have a huge opportunity to get a large workload. The issue is, who's the quarterback going to be, and will that workload be good? What happens if maybe Zach Wilson or Trey Lance falls to 15 and the Patriots take one of those guys? Or what if they reach for like a Mac Jones sort of thing, looking for kind of that next Tom Brady? Where do I think he could go next? Well, I didn't really have to look far because number 16, the Arizona Cardinals, are in need of a tight end. Dan Arnold had his moments this season, but I don't think he's the answer. If Kyle Pitts is there, I think they would snatch him up and give Kyler Murray another weapon to work with alongside DeAndre Hopkins. I think that would be a very ideal case scenario for the Cardinals. Regarding Kyle Pitts' fantasy output, if he were to sign with the Cardinals, if they were to draft him, I'm not sure. I mean, you have DeAndre Hopkins there. Obviously, Kyler Murray runs the ball. You're going to have whatever running backs get the ball. You have Christian Kirk. Larry Fitzgerald might be back for another year. So I do think there's a scenario in which Kyle Pitts is number 2 on that receiving list behind DeAndre Hopkins. I could also see a scenario where he kind of gets lost. So at that point, I don't know how high I'd be willing to take him, but he'd definitely be worth a flyer and could potentially have a good season if you were to be with the Cardinals. The only other spot that I think would be good for his 2021 fantasy value is if he went at 23 to the New York Jets. If the Jets get him there, obviously Chris Herndon, I really don't think is the answer. Kyle Pitts would immediately be in a position to make a huge impact there because they don't really have bona fide with receivers. I mean, Denzel Mims will be in his second year, so he'll obviously be trying to make a little bit more of an impact. But aside from that, they really have no one. Jamison Crowder, maybe he was there for part of the season, but also part of the season kind of disappeared. Bigger concern with the Jets, though, who is their quarterback going to be? If it's Sam Darnold, do we trust that? Will Sam Darnold take the step forward? What if it's Justin Fields? What if they take Fields at 2? Is he going to immediately give Kyle Pitts value as a rookie to a rookie? Probably not. So there are a lot of concerns there, but I could also see a scenario in which Kyle Pitts comes in and is immediately this huge mismatch, is immediately this matchup nightmare for cornerbacks and is a safety valve for whatever quarterback is there. So, I think there's upside with the Jets, but definitely a lot of downside too. All right, so that's going to do it for the 4th Football Draft Friday. Thank you guys for sticking with me through this one. I hope you see what the good stuff with Kyle Pitts is. I hope now you also understand that why Kyle Pitts isn't my top guy. Now, obviously, I haven't released a video on Pat Freiermuth yet, but whenever I do release that video, make sure to look out for it, and then you can see, okay, So what's he saying about this guy? Why does he think this guy is better than the big name? Kyle Pitts, the guy who is everybody else's number one. And hopefully I can change some of your minds. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. You hit that like button, hit that little bell so that you get notifications every single time we post a video. And have a great day, guys.